Most places dry. Slightly fresher day for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but pleasant in the sunshine. But look at the temperatures across East Anglia and the southeast. Likely to hit 30 Celsius in one or two spots. So pretty hot here. That might spark one or two late thundery showers. The rain is likely to continue over parts of northwest England, Wales and southwest England during Wednesday evening. And then we could see some thundery rain drifting up from France across the Channel, bringing some heavy downpours to East Anglia and the southeast. Some welcome rain in this part of the world, but it could be pretty intense. Some thunderstorms are possible. That may cause some disruption. So that's something to keep an eye on. During Thursday, probably clearing away. A few showers in the northwest, but otherwise most places on Thursday dry and bright with sunny spells. Still pretty warm across the southeast on Thursday, but elsewhere start to lose that humidity with a fresh.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening. It's 11 o'clock. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Nadeem Zahawi says Westminster is stepping in to help Scots with the rising cost of living. The Chancellor will visit Edinburgh on Wednesday, where he's set to reaffirm the UK government's commitment to ease pressures on household budgets. Mr Zahawi says he knows families are feeling anxious about rising costs, and the UK government plans to help as part of a £37 billion support package. It comes after Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says the UK government needs to intervene on a much larger scale when it comes to the energy bills crisis. Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak went head-to-head in Birmingham at the Tory leadership hustings. Ms Truss claims Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer doesn't believe in opportunity, as she also vowed to unleash the potential of our great country. The Foreign Secretary added that she'll stand up against Starmer, another Labour leader she says doesn't believe in aspiration. Rishi Sunak says if he were elected as Prime Minister, he wants to take control of migration within the country.
It's why I have set out a detailed and radical plan to finally get to grips with illegal migration. Now, I stand here as a product of our country's proud, compassionate history in welcoming people to our shores. But it must be done legally. It must be done fairly. And when we turn on our TV screens and see the scenes of people breaking the rules to come here, it undermines trust in the system, and it is wrong, and we must stop it.
Meanwhile, Ms Truss has vowed to invest more money into smaller cities and improve trade deals.
That we will unleash investment into cities like Birmingham, towns and cities across our country. We could do more trade deals, benefiting industries like ceramics, industries like the car industry, and I had a great visit earlier to JLR, industries like financial services and technology.
A manhunt is underway after a 9-year-old child was fatally shot in Liverpool last night. Police have named the schoolgirl who was killed as Olivia Pratt-Corbell. Officers were called to a house in the Knotty Ash area after an unknown man who was being chased by a gunman forced his way into the property. Police say shots were fired, hitting a woman, Olivia's mother, and fatally wounding the young girl. Detectives are urging criminals to assist with their inquiries and are asking anyone with information to come forward. A woman who was reported missing nearly 8 weeks ago has been found safe and well. The Met Police says 24-year-old student nurse Owami Davies was found in Hampshire after a call to police from someone who'd seen media appeals. She was last seen walking in Croydon in early July, and concern had been growing for her safety. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to headliners.
Hello, I'm Andrew Doyle and welcome to Headliners. Joining me tonight are a pair of comedians whose interests surpass mere mortals. One has a passion for gerbils, only rivalled by Richard Gere, it's Leo Kearse, and the other so infatuated with lawn mowing he makes Capability Brown look like an amateur. It's Paul Cops. Absolute freaks, the both of them. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we start with the Daily Mail. Daily Mail leads with picture of innocence to shame lawless Britain. That's the absolutely horrific story of Olivia Pratt-Corbell, who was shot in Liverpool. Sorry, we're going to get to that in a moment. The Telegraph says EU feared to be losing will to back Ukraine. Apparently, the cost of living is biting, and there are fears among diplomats that people are going to stop supporting Ukraine in the current conflict. The Guardian runs with fury as grain giants profit from unjust hunger crisis. Financial Times now, and shielding families from fuel bill shock reckoned to cost 10 billion. And also a story there, Twitter, the extent of fake accounts and data flaws. According to a whistleblower, they had been hiding those fake accounts. That's maybe why Elon Musk isn't buying it after all. Anyway, the Mirror says, freeze our bills now. And also Unbearable, that horrible story of the murder. The Times says, Red Arrows engulfed by bullying and assault row. And the front cover of the Daily Express also has the story about Olivia Pratt-Corbell and goes with just a child, innocent victim of gun wars. The Daily Star, as ever, bucks the trend, goes with yes, yes, yes. And that's to do with, apparently, scientists are saying that regular sex boosts your health as much as giving up the booze and the fags. All right, well, we might cover that later on. Anyway, those are your front covers. So obviously lots of the covers are being dominated by the tragic shootings in Liverpool, Leo. And this one, we've got the Express here.
Yeah, so this is a totally tragic crime. So basically a man was being chased by another man, a gunman, and he forced his way. So a mother in her home opened the door to see what the commotion was outside, and this man who's been chased sort of forced his way inside. So the guy who was chasing him with a gun stuck the gun into the door and just started firing indiscriminately by the sounds of things, and shot the man, shot other people, but shot fatally wounded this 9-year-old child. So obviously completely innocent victim. And just what sort of country are we in where people can run around with guns just like without fear of anything bad happening to them, without fear of prosecution, without fear of police being there. I mean, the police were probably too busy painting something rainbow-coloured or, arresting somebody for a tweet. Not that I'm saying the police just focus on tweets and things like that, but they do arrest people for tweets, and there's stuff like this going on.
There's a lot of unsolved crime, that's for sure. I mean, there's also just this incredible lack of empathy here. This man shot into the door, shot the child and the mother, and then went on to barge in and shoot the other man. I mean, it's a completely horrific, repugnant.
I mean, I don't expect a lot of empathy from the sort of criminals who are going to be running around with a gun shooting people. So, I mean, I don't expect criminals to have empathy. What I expect is the authorities to deal with it and to create an environment where people don't feel that they can do this kind of thing.
So, of course, this is in the wake of, there was also the stabbing of the 87-year-old gentleman who was raising money for Ukraine. So, and a lot of the discussions around this topic, Paul, at the moment are, as Leo has intimated there, about whether or not law and order is out of control. Do we need to do something different?
Well, I mean, first of all, this is harrowing. You know, as a father myself, a daughter a similar age, I found this story entirely upsetting. All day, my thoughts go out to the family. But we do. I mean, this is happening on a ridiculously regular basis.
Yeah.
And I don't mean 9-year-old girls getting shot in the safety of their own home, as tragic and terrible as that is. But the crime you mentioned just before, where the 87-year-old guy is stabbed to death in his mobility scooter, this doesn't feel like it's a one-off anymore.
And knife crime is escalating continually.
Yeah.
You know, and as Leo does say, I mean, it sounds flippant, but there is a point to this.
Yeah.
The police are spending a lot of their time investigating things like non-crime hate incidents, you know, sort of demonstrating their credentials when it comes to this ideology.
And if they're not actually attending, you know, a pride parade or, you know, putting up some sort of float or whatever it is, or painting something rainbow-coloured, then they're attending staff training around, you know, how to identify microaggressions in the workplace.
The optics are terrible from
Well,
the
they
police
are.
perspective.
I mean,
they are terrible.
Is it just that they need more funding, or is it that actually the funding needs to be distributed and spent in a wiser way? I mean, surely there is a criticism to be made there.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's difficult to blame the beat officers that we probably see at the festivals or on the fates or whatever it might be, because they are following instructions that come from a high.
Sure.
You know, it starts at policing college and it cascades down. We need to change how the country views the police. And we can only do that by focusing on crimes as serious as this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the perception of the police at the moment couldn't be lower, really. But anyway, we're going to move on now to Wednesday's Sun. Some good news, though.
Yeah,
Paul.
I'd say this is very good news. Student nurse Awami Davies has been found safe and well.
This rarely happens, does it? You know, someone's reported missing and you just assume the worst now, don't you?
You absolutely do. And, I mean, this is a very serious story and there are a lot of questions for the police to answer, but it's now starting to read like an episode of Tales of the Unexpected.
Yeah.
It started off as the suspicion of murder. Five guys were arrested, and now all of a sudden she's found in Hampshire like a retired cricketer.
Yeah, but this article isn't really clear about where she was in this interim period or why she'd gone missing.
If it was five guys, they probably wanted to turn her into burgers.
So maybe that's the solution to this. Who knows? But we are low on details on this one. I mean, I've read the whole artitle, but we don't really know what happened, do we?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully after, I mean, the five men who've been arrested and bailed, I'm assuming they're men, once that investigation has fulfilled itself, we'll know a bit more about what's going on.
Yeah, maybe. OK, we're going to move on now to Wednesday's Independent, and it seems the government may not be able to quell the winter of our discontent. Leo.
Yeah, so government support for households facing rocketing energy bills is much too low to prevent a catastrophic crisis this winter. An energy boss has warned. So this is the EDF director, Philippe Commaret. I mean, EDF is a French company, so that would make sense. But apparently forecasts are that more than half of British households, 45 million people, will be trapped in fuel poverty by January.
I mean, that's horrendous, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not going to stop at January. Apparently by April, our Ofgem's price cap is going to be up at around £6,000. So that's, you know, that's a ridiculous amount.
OK, well, what about this idea that Truss and Sunak have sort of suggested? They've moved to this idea of scrapping VAT on household energy bills. Is this going to do anything?
All the solutions that have been posited by politicians are absolute nonsense. They talk about price caps, they talk about subsidies and giving handouts to people. Yeah. The problem is there's not enough energy. There's not enough energy because we rely on gas from Russia. And without that gas from Russia, there isn't enough gas.
Paul, Leo often talks on this show about the need for fracking and the need to take control of our own energy resources, right? and he does enjoy those rants. But I would like to hear what you think about about that. Do you think that is the solution?
Well, fracking is one of the solutions. It has to be, doesn't it, alongside nuclear? No, I know people are divisive to say that fracking is one of the solutions, but it clearly is. You have to have all options on the table now because gas, the wholesale gas price is not going to change. Is it going to come down? No. I mean, and the things the government are offering, it's a bit like your nan giving you 50p to go on holiday. It makes no difference whatsoever.
But even if we implement measures to sort of set up nuclear reactors that might benefit us in the future, they're not really going to help very rapidly, are they?
No, nothing's going to happen.
If we're going to have half the country in fuel poverty, I mean, that's worse than I thought.
We could build more terminals to take liquefied gas. We could start fracking right now. Do it right now. Then at least it'll be ready for a year's time when we're in. The trouble with subsidies is all they do, because there isn't enough gas there, if we subsidise people's use of gas, it doesn't restrict their use. The price is going up because there's not enough gas. So if we subsidise it, they don't restrict their use. So that just means that the price goes up even more. So
what about nationalisation? Is that your only answer? Just a bellow of laughter there.
The problem is there isn't enough gas. Nationalisation, we can do whatever we want. We can paint it purple. It doesn't matter. There's not enough gas.
I'm just mooting it because Gordon Brown suggested this is a possible option.
Gordon Brown has suggested a lot of things that have led the country into the devastation we're in now. So, you know, whether it's devolution, whether it's the Iraq War, I don't want to hear from former Labour.
It was, and it always has been, ridiculously intangible to me to understand what this might mean. So I think I read something today or yesterday in the Daily Mail, so forgive me, I'm quoting something I'm not entirely sure about, but to put it into context, it's like the price rise is like a pint of lager being £33.
Oh, it's insane,
and a packet of cigarettes being over £100. That is the equivalent of what we're seeing in this rise in gas and electricity prices, because they're tied together.
30 quid for a pint. I mean, I live in London, so I'm used to that.
It's quite cheap.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Anyway, on to Wednesday's Financial Times and the economic climate not looking great, Paul.
It's not, is it? No. And, you know, it goes without saying, Eurozone business...
Wow, that's a different story.
Not Eurovision, although it is coming home. It is coming home. Second place is coming home. Eurozone business activity has suffered its biggest contraction in 18 months as a result of higher prices, falling demand and rising inventories of unsold goods.
And this is presumably also to do with Russia's gas supply.
It is, isn't it? And I think probably the resolution to all of this is to stop the war with Russia. Now, you can argue how that could be done. It could be done a number of ways. You could defeat Russia. You could just say, that's enough, guys, can we get back to normal? But it's that is causing all these problems at the moment. I know some people say that it's not just that, but it pretty much is.
Yeah, but so it needs to be resolved, is what you're saying. But the problem is that a lot of diplomats are now saying that support for Ukraine is going to be mitigated because of this kind of thing. Yeah. And is that not a worry, actually?
Yeah, that worries me because, I mean, Ukraine is basically the front line between Western liberal democracy and autocracy, you know, dictatorship, totalitarianism. And Putin has been very clever in using gas, using energy as a weapon of war.
Very effective.
And also, you know, with the lower rainfall we've seen, Germany, which is, you know, the heart of Europe basically, can't get gas up the Rhine. And so much of the German economy is fueled by cheap natural gas. So if they can't get the gas up the Rhine, you know, through alternative routes, Nord Stream's been cut off by Russia, then the German economy is kaput.
I think the moral of this lesson is don't rely on Russia for anything.
Trump said this years ago and everybody laughed at him.
But we don't rely on them as much as other countries, do we? But we are tied into this. There's no escaping it.
Sure.
It's so expensive now, isn't it? It's just ridiculous. You can see rappers' videos in 2023 just leaving the lights on. Because, you know, that's to show their wealth. Look at us, you know, we left the lights on.
Wednesday's Guardian now, and abortions, Leo. Good luck with that one.
Yeah, so women in England and Wales will be able to permanently access early medical abortions at home from next week after ministers were forced to abandon plans to scrap the pills by post service. So over lockdown, when people couldn't go to the doctors and have a face-to-face consultation, they offered this abortion pill by post. Unlike a lot of things that were introduced over lockdown that were obviously cheaper for the NHS, they've decided to keep it on. Like antenatal classes are still done over Zoom, which, you know, completely defeats the point of meeting other parents and stuff. And you know, there's some issues with this because, you know, these pills are really only for if you got a fetus that's below 10 weeks.
This is very early stages in pregnancy,
Very
isn't it?
early stage. Well, I mean, up to 10 weeks, which isn't so early. So, I mean, the general sort of balance for abortion in total, I think in Ireland it's 12 weeks. I think in the UK it's about, I'm not sure what it is.
I thought it was around 24.
Yeah, well, 24 is when the fetus is viable.
But what was the concern with not allowing people to do this at home? Is it that other people might use the pills or something like that?
Yeah, so people that are beyond 10 weeks might use these pills.
Right, I see. Paul, any thoughts on this? It's not something that I suppose you've had to think too much about.
No, I haven't, but I think the more that women have control over their own bodies, the less of an issue I have with it, to be honest. I know that that could be seen as controversial, but from my perspective, it just goes to prove that we're a free country. And in comparison to America, we are, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about the body of the baby?
Now, this is getting into the debate about abortion, and that's, which we could do, but it's going to be the rest of the show, isn't it? Leo? Let's be honest, and we're not going to get anywhere with that. I've had that debate on my show with two women, one who was pro, one who was against, and it was really fascinating. Yeah. They did a lot of justice to it, and I fear that we wouldn't quite replicate that, maybe. No. Anyway, let's move on to Wednesday's Times. And in London, you're never more than 6 feet away from a rat. I fear in Edinburgh, that's not going to be quite accurate.
Have you seen it? Have you seen the pictures?
Unbelievable pictures, yeah.
Disgusting. I mean, even worse than normal.
Yeah.
But rats have taken over and replaced mice as the main vermin in Edinburgh. Now, Leo and I were talking about this. We still believe it's the landlords in Edinburgh that are the vermin.
I think it's the reviewers.
Yeah, yes.
So why has this happened? So there's been a strike among people who remove the refuse, empty the bins.
Pay rises again.
Yeah,
Offered
OK.
3%, but offered 5%.
Going on for five days, I think they're saying now.
Yeah, this is looking like it could go all the way to the 30th of August, which has been longer than 5 days, I think.
And you're right, Paul. The photographs of like the bins and even like apparently people getting on the trains, they have to step over refuse to get onto the trains. I mean, this place it's starting to look like something out of Mad Max.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's filthy, and you know I've read this story from top to bottom, and at no point do the SNP accept any fault or blame for this whatsoever. They're even blaming the Labour MSP, the Labour Council in Edinburgh. But surely at some point, Nicola Sturgeon, the SNP, have to accept the fault for some of these things.
Well, Leo, didn't I see you get into a spat about this online because some comedian had complained about it, and the Scottish nationalist had said, well, why don't you go back to your fascist country, England, or something? Something really extreme, this response.
Matt Ford had tweeted the picture of the bins overflowing and the rats and everything, and Scottish nationalists said, oh, you're English, you should go back home, which is, it's just the lovely... And also he was saying Scotland's a progressive country. Why don't you go back home? It's like, is that really progressive?
Yeah, it was a bit hypocritical, wasn't it?
To scream at somebody from another country to go back home.
It's a legitimate complaint from Matt Ford that, you can't get anywhere because there's rubbish everywhere.
Yeah, and like Paul says, the buck stops with the SNP, so they cut funding to Edinburgh Council, whose responsibility it is. And obviously Edinburgh Council have wasted a huge amount of money over the years on the trams, which, went way over budget.
I remember that in Edinburgh, like during the Fringe. It went on for years and years.
Yeah, it's still going on. And the SNP have wasted so much money on ferries that don't even go anywhere.
Yeah.
The SNP have, we really need to open the books in the SNP because
we've got an image, by the way, of the.
There's so much money has gone from Westminster, and they can't even clean up the bins.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Really, really not good, and the worst possible time, given the festival is on. And I
think it's the best possible time. I just love the fact that as well as having performing to like 3 people, comedians are having to... They don't even have anywhere to put their Costa.
I mean, think of the hygiene issues. I mean, Edinburgh Fringe, it's unhygienic at the best of times. There's all sorts of infections going around, but that's just going to exacerbate it.
Yeah, apparently it stinks.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You can't see it, but apparently it absolutely stinks. People I've spoken to out there.
Good.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not doing the Fringe this year. Anyway, that's all for part 1. Coming up after the break, James Bond's problematic moral code, an anti-racism program gone wrong, and why Generation Z are in for a harsh awakening. See you in 2 minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints over a drink, we have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Phrenology.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle. He is Leo Kearse and he is Paul Cox. Let's crack on. Back with Wednesday's Times now. And apparently the internet is not the most conducive place for level-headed analyses of complex interpersonal issues, Leo.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
I thought it was. I thought Twitter, with its 12-character limit, was the perfect place for this. So, a novelist accused of trivialising a death threat against J.K. Rowling has conceded that the internet is not the best place to have complicated discussions. So this is Joanne Harris, who wrote Chocolat, which is French for chocolate. And was accused...
You're just showing off now.
Yeah, I'm multilingual. Was accused of taking a sideswipe at Rowling in the hours after the attempted murder of Sir Salman Rushdie in New York. So she posted a poll on social media, apparently mocking Rowling. So Rowling had said, you know, she got death threats as well. And this Harris posted saying, fellow authors, have you ever received a death threat, credible or otherwise? Suggesting that the death threat against J.K. Rowling wasn't credible. By the way, Harris has a trans son because she's middle class in 2022.
So one of the reasons why so many people are angry is because Joanne Harris, you know, is the chair of the Society of Authors and has failed repeatedly to defend all of these women who are getting death threats and rape threats. You know, we had people like Rachel Rooney, Kate Clancy, we've had Julie Bindel, J.K. Rowling, of course, has had so many death threats. She says she can paper the house with them. So is it
That'd be interesting.
Well, I mean, it would be an interesting avant-garde statement, but quite chilling. But don't you think, like, someone like in her position, it isn't really cancel culture, I don't think. It's not people saying because of Joanne Harris's opinion she should lose the job, which isn't paid, by the way, anyway. The point is she's
not paid.
It's not, no.
Why did she do it?
Well, this is my question. Paul.
Well, she said, I felt I got the tone wrong. Well,
wow.
Of course she got the tone wrong. I mean, when is a death threat credible or not credible? Even if Mr. Blobby is making the death threat, it's a credible death threat.
It's something that should be taken seriously.
Because there's a man inside Mr. Blobby.
Well,
so even though Mr. Blobby himself doesn't look like he
do
could
we know
kill
that?
you. Imagine if it was, one of Jihadi John inside the Mr. Blobby suit.
It could be.
Yeah.
You don't know who's inside that suit.
With no evidence suggests
I think we're digressing slightly, but I like the maybe Mr. Blobby chap, but I just do wonder about this idea. Paul, what do you think about whether someone who's the constitution or whatever they call of the Society of Authors is to protect authors and their right to free speech? Shouldn't they have spoken out because J.K. Rowling has had thousands and thousands of death threats?
Yes, and they didn't speak out in the way they should have done because it's J.K. Rowling. I don't know what it is about J.K. Rowling. I mean, and I know everything there is to know about the perceived problems with J.K. Rowling, but I don't know what it is that makes everybody else in the world think they can undermine everything that she does.
Yeah, it's a very strange one. Yeah, do you think she should step down then, or do you think this could be perceived as cancel culture?
Step down from an unpaid role. No,
Yeah.
I think her punishment should be to do it more. There you go.
Well, you know, I think that's going to go on and on anyway. But anyway, we're going to move on to another story now. This is Wednesday's Guardian, and they are the thing they accuse you of once again, Paul.
Oh, yes. Canada cuts anti-racism programme after lead consultant's vile tweets. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that keeps Leo Kearse in work. Why is it...
Long may it continue.
And long may it continue, yeah. Laith Maruth tweeted a series of offensive anti-Semitic messages spurring the federal government to cut funding to the initiative. So... once again, we find ourselves in a... Why is it always the anti-racist or the pro-feminist man, it tends to be the man, that ends up being the least feminist and the most racist?
It's very odd, and there's also a real blind spot with anti-Semitism. I mean, we saw this before with the cricket story with the man who complained about experiencing racism, and then they went back through his tweets, and there were some really horrific anti-Semitic tweets. So
Andy'd also tried to chat up a young teenage girl on a plane and plied her with alcohol.
So you know, if you're gonna throw stones in a glass house, you know what's going. Like, but there's something weird about this. There've also been activists in America who've been associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. There have been anti-Semitic tweets come out, anti-Semitic ideas.
Well,
what's going on?
There's a trope in leftist culture that says, and you see this from Momentum, from Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, all the way through to Black Lives Matter. There's a trope that Jews control the media, that Jews control banking and all this sort of stuff. And it's disgusting. And also they don't see, for some reason, you know, people talk about minorities. I mean, Jews are the ultimate minority. There's like 14 million of them worldwide compared to like over 2 billion Muslims.
But it's just inconsistent. If you're going to call yourself anti-racist, but you're going to say, oh, except for that race.
Yeah,
that race we can have a go at. Yeah. But otherwise, we're anti-racist. It's self... How can it not be self-discrediting?
Well, how does it help their cause in any way, shape or form? There is an ignorance there, isn't there? These people don't see beyond this. You know, they get caught, they go again, they choose another anti-racist who turns out to be racist.
It's the same people tweeting saying, I hope J.K. Rowling dies, #be kind.
Yeah.
You know, love wins. You know, they think they're the good guys and they are displaying all of those characteristics that they purport to hate. It's really annoying.
So much of it hinges on the Israel-Palestine conundrum because, they say, Palestine should be liberated. And the thing is, I mean, people have tried to liberate Palestine before the Six-Day War, when Israel... the countries around Israel have tried to wipe out the Jews inside it, repeatedly throughout its history.
But they've been quite open about their intentions, their genocidal intentions.
And also Israel, for all its faults, is the one country in the Middle East that's got equal rights for women, for gays. It's democratic, and so why is it the one country out of the entire Middle East that leftists always single out?
It does seem to happen
for criticism
again and again. Anyway, we need to move on. This is Wednesday's Telegraph. What is going on in the civil service? Well, I know a lot of bad things, but what specifically is this story about, Leo?
So, a former civil servant is suing the Environment Agency, claiming he was sacked for refusing to positively discriminate in favour of women. There's a guy called Kevin Legg. He's 50 years old. He worked at the Quango for 16 years. Nice, cushy run. And he's arguing that he was sacked for not being a feminist and that feminism is a belief system he does not adhere to. This sounds like malicious compliance to rules, because basically he was moonlighting as a councillor while he was supposed to be working full-time for them. But he's saying it's because he refused to do their bidding,
Yeah, they basically said, you've got to employ women, you must discriminate.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get a bit tired of this idea that employers can just discriminate on the basis of skin colour or sex or sexuality, and that's OK now. It shouldn't be OK. That should always be bad, right?
Yeah.
Should just hire the best person, right?
Well, there should be equality, but this isn't equality, is it? Everything that's being discussed here isn't equality. Equality would mean that mega feminists and Wallies like Kevin can exist in the same working place, and tolerance would be there. We would accept that, wouldn't we? It feels like we've moved way beyond that now, and everything must be as zealous as it possibly can.
Well, there's an issue with the civil service in particular. I mean, the civil service is absolutely rife with these ideologues who go along with these woke ideas. Like, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
And and of course the civil service, the machinery of government, has to be impartial in order to do its job.
I'm not entirely sure that these people are that way. I think they're incentivised to be this way.
Well, who knows why? Who knows what's going through their mind? But I mean, it's absolutely clear that it's happening, and it could be that it's a really easy way to pull yourself up the greasy pole.
Oh, for sure.
If you run a few do diversity workshops and stuff. People love you for that. You get promotions. It's fantastic, and you get a lot of money.
Game now.
Although, to be a little more prosaic, this guy was working as a counsellor during his working hours, which was said to be having an adverse effect on his duties, as having another job. I mean, if I was working as a counsellor right now, it would probably be distracting me from doing this job.
It would, so I hope you don't do that. You've got to focus. Anyway, Wednesday's Telegraph now. And who better to opine about the characteristics of Generation Z than three total boomers? Paul, you're technically Gen X, aren't you?
I am, yeah, 1979, which makes me Gen X.
Just, actually.
Oh, no, actually, you might be a millennial.
No, he's
I'm
not.
definitely not.
Oh, you're not?
He's 1 year out from being a millennial.
I'm not sure I'd have been allowed in the door. I think there's some criteria. Unambitious Gen Z is about to get a rude awakening, as we said. Taking a lower salary for more freedom and less work may appeal, but the cost of living crisis means a harsher winter for quiet quitters. Now, I didn't know what quiet quitters... By the way, do either of you two know what quiet quitters are?
No.
Because I had to look this up. Quiet quitting is essentially renouncing the hustle culture. So this is a generation of people who are quitting the idea of going above and beyond at work.
Yeah.
And...
well, I mean, there's lots of people quitting their jobs since the pandemic.
Yeah, and it's not, by the way, if you read the article, it's not just about Gen Zs, which I think are born between 97 and 2012. It's over 50s as well. And I think at some point, somebody makes a complaint. John Lewis, Dame Sharon White, recently blamed early retirees for spiralling wage inflation.
It's not as silly as it sounds. I mean, we've had thousands and thousands of people in their 50s and above taking early retirement because they've got used to not working. Turns out not working is great. It's really fun just being, I'm not doing anything.
The government should never have had furlough and lockdown and introduced people to the concept of not doing any work, because not doing any work is much more fun than doing work.
But I would also say that leisure time is important. If you've read The Soul of Man Under Socialism by Oscar Wilde, he writes about this idea that leisure time is what civilises us. So maybe we should follow in Oscar Wilde's footsteps and not do any work. I might just go home now.
Yeah, we should, shall we?
Well, I mean, there's something in it. Anyway, Wednesday's Independent now. And to a man I've looked up to my entire life, James Bond.
So Anthony Horowitz has written 3 James Bond novels. He says that Bond lives by a different moral code to the one we have now. Who'd have thought James Bond lives by a different moral code?
You mean he's not an intersectional feminist?
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Yeah, so he says he's not going to write any more James Bond books now that the money's settled in his account for the last one. And yeah, he says, when I'm writing the books, I always hear Sean Connery and see Daniel Craig, and he lives by a different moral code, and he refutes the suggestion that James Bond is chauvinistic or sexist or misogynistic, which seems crazy. I mean, he definitely is all those things.
I mean, he's absolutely those things. That's part of the appeal, isn't it?
This is basically how I see Leo. I mean, I hear Sean Connery, I see Craig David, drinking the milk.
Craig David?
Who the hell's Craig David? What's going on tonight? Craig David. I
can't see the resemblance, I'll be honest. But I mean, this is an interesting one because James Bond, obviously Ian Fleming's creation, he is going to be a bit sexist, misogynistic. He's a rogue. Yeah. He also, by the way, kills people, which is more my issue with James Bond rather than the misogyny. I think the shooting people in the face.
That is a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a
problem.
slight issue.
And what I do like about this is Horowitz doesn't... He's quite happy to defend James Bond. He sees James Bond as the character of its time. Yeah. And you don't often read that anymore, do you? So, these people take these... they write these books and they say, it's disgusting. I don't know how much is in the bank account. I'm on my way now. And that's what they tend to do, don't they? They tend to just appease.
But also, Paul, what is this thing about people not being able to understand that fictional characters might not be morally pure, right? Wow. Go and read the Flashman novels. I mean, for goodness sake. Well, sometimes it's quite fun and interesting and entertaining to explore moral ambiguity in fiction. Yeah. There, I said it.
I just want Craig David as the new James Bond.
That would be quite good. I think that would work.
Failed on a Tuesday.
That's what I see, Leo.
That's why you thought he was like Craig David, because of his lovely singing voice. Anyway, we have probed to the very end of this part of the show. Coming up, we've got self-castration, the menopause, and big, strong bones. And that's just the 3 of us. See you in a bit.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Pharaoh.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, and I'm joined tonight with Leo Kearse and Paul Cox. Back with Wednesday's Metro, and Wimbledon has a long line of diva-ish behaviour. McEnroe, Becker, Cliff Richard. But this year's biggest diva is in trouble. Paul, what's this about?
Nick Kyrgios. She looks like she's had 700 drinks. Now, I love Nick Kyrgios, and anyone who watched Wimbledon, I'm sure he split people down the middle, but I thought he was hilarious. I think it was the best thing about Wimbledon this year. He didn't win. He was in the final, but he didn't win. I'm surprised that there isn't the umpires that are suing him because of the way he spoke to the umpires.
Oh, yeah.
There was a spectator that was accused by Nick Kyrgios of having about 700 drinks. She kept talking to him, she was heckling him. And
during his serve and stuff, right?
And he was insinuating that she had too much to drink.
Well, I mean, what I don't understand about this, she's taking him to court, saying this is defamatory, right? I can't see how it is. What he actually said was, he goes to the umpire and says, can you sort out this woman who looks like she's had about 700 drinks, bro? Right? And he says, looks like, for one thing. Well, that's his perception, his opinion. 700 drinks is obviously hyperbolic. He wasn't actually libeling her, or slandering her, rather, and saying she has drunk 700 drinks. How is this a case?
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's not defamatory. I'll defame her right now. She definitely had 700 drinks.
There we go.
At that court. To bring this case, she must have had 700 drinks. It's insane. She's like the worst comedy heckler of all time. You know, you get those people, it's always women with, like, you know, the glass of white wine, and
you always have to bring it back to your casual misogyny.
They're like, I was trying to help. I was trying to help by heckling you.
She wanted a reaction.
Yeah.
And Nick Kyrgios is a man to push to get a reaction. And this was the tamest reaction that he gave during Wimbledon.
What I love about this is the quote from her, I am not litigious.
I think you might be.
But after some consideration, and we know he's got a lot of money, and maybe I want some of that. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have I just defamed her there? I mean, her threshold for defamation is really low. So
we'll all be in court.
We'll all be in court. That'd be fun. Okay, anyway, we're going to move on now to the next one from the Daily Mail. This is a horrible story.
No, this is quite funny. So a man in Ghana has cut off his penis while dreaming about chopping meat for his family. He's called Kofi Atta. He's a farmer from South Ghana, and he suffered the horrific self-inflicted injury on August the 12th after dozing off.
I'm going to stop you there because we have got a picture of... No, we don't. No, we don't. Just joking.
Well, he was dreaming about preparing foods. He told reporters he had been given fluids. Oh, no, this is afterwards. So after the thing. I mean, basically the explanation of it is all in pidgin English, so I can't say it without sounding incredibly racist.
No, you can't. No,
I'll have a go.
No.
Remember how carry the knife, even me, I dey confused. Atta said to BBC reporters, I dey sit inside chair way I doze off, So as I day sleep, I dream, say, I day cut meat we day in front of me.
Right, I'm going to put a stop to this. I think, but actually, no, you sounded all right. That's what it says. That's what it says. Now, the thing about this is, was he was dreaming of meat. He must have been naked, presumably, sleeping with a knife next to him. Something is fishy about all of this.
None of this adds up.
It doesn't add up.
The first thing I did when I finished reading this article was say to myself, sure, mate, right.
Something else has happened here.
Why have you, I mean, no one, who's dreaming about cutting up meat for their family? What sort of dreams is this man having? This is your dream, mate.
I mean, if it's real, it's horrible.
I'm sure it's real. I'm sure he's cut off his... unless he's done it to get in the paper.
There is a condition called parasomnia where you can wake to find you've performed undesirable actions while you're sleeping.
Totally true. Often used as a defence in court.
Exactly, yeah. And this can range from talking to strange body movements, full-blown sleepwalking, and even intricate physical tasks, such as cutting off your own penis.
Yeah.
I think what happened was somebody cut off his penis. He didn't want the shame of... and I hope he doesn't sue me like that woman sued the tennis player. But I think somebody might have cut off his penis and he didn't want the shame of other people knowing that had happened, so he's saying...
Well, I think he'll sue you for your terrible impersonation of him. Anyway, on...
I know they think that.
Well, we'll see you in court. On to Wednesday's Daily Mail, and who better to discuss this next story than the three of us? Paul!
Finally, a subject we're qualified to talk about. Delaying the menopause by even a few years could extend a woman's lifespan, Leo.
Right, this is a new study, yes?
It is a new study. Since the hormonal change triggers faster ageing across the rest of the body, an expert says, Dr. Jennifer Garrison, an award-winning scientist who leads the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, warned the process changes the body's hormone balance, sparking a more rapid decline. So the point here is, she said, that women who begin the menopause in their 40s, rather than around 51, age differently and are likely to look older.
Can you delay it?
I don't think you can. I mean, I did say I was an expert, but I'm not entirely an expert.
Leo, can you delay the menopause?
Probably. You can take hormones and stuff. But what she's saying is, so if you have the menopause earlier, you're going to die earlier. But surely having the menopause is a marker that you're ageing faster. So, it's like saying, I don't know, what's not going bald, because people go bald at different rates, but getting arthritis or something.
But surely the scientists behind this study must have some qualifications and understand what they're saying.
Scientists make all kinds of stuff up. Look at climate change and COVID. It's an absolute nonsense.
And that whole ozone layer thing. They just made that up.
Yeah, I've been going without an ozone layer for years.
There's our acid rain.
But so surely, if this thing that happens in your life happens sooner, that means you're aging faster, because that's a marker that happens like halfway through your life.
Is this saying that you're... Sorry, Andrew. Is this saying that you're aging faster or that you look like you are? Because some women have early menopause, like in their late 20s, early 30s. So they're not dying when they get to 51, are they? They just...
Well, hopefully.
For goodness sake.
Outrageously.
I know mothers are called geriatric mothers if they're 35 years or over, which is,
Are they? It's every middle-class mother in London.
So insulting. Well, I'm going to stick my neck out and say we have no idea about that subject, so let's move on very quickly. You do not, Leo. Right, this one, Leo, what's this about not eating meat?
More science nonsense. Researchers from the University of Leeds, who've got a university now apparently, looked at around about 25,000 women between the ages of 35 and 69. Nothing perverted about it, though. They were looking at the risk of hip fractures according to diet. Yeah. So they found that if you're a vegetarian, you have a greater risk of hip fracture.
But only if you're female?
Only if you're a female. Well, I don't think they looked at men. So
that's why we don't... That's why it just says that...
They couldn't find enough men who are vegetarians.
They didn't.
I'm a vegetarian. They could have come to me.
How are your hips?
They're all right.
It does say here that they are more likely to fracture their hips, but they don't say how or why.
I think, hip fracture is a good marker for bone density and osteoporosis and things like that.
So they're having a fall.
Yeah. So if you fall, you're more likely to break your hips. It's going to be the thing that goes first. So, and also the spine as well.
So what are they saying? You should eat meat just to make sure you keep your hips in place?
I don't think they're saying that, because that would go against everything else that's been said. And also, if you go into the supermarket, there's all this plant-based stuff.
Yeah.
It's more expensive than meat, and it's always there as well, because nobody wants to buy it. So they're really trying to push this this plant-based diet on us.
So what? Wait a minute, I don't understand, because this is saying that if you're more likely to break your hips if you don't have meat.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the article's suggesting that there are other ways, other alternatives.
Yeah, they say, like, you can take bone-building nutrients. Man, just eat some eggs and some steak. Nobody ever, just eat eggs and steak. And if you're worried about,
But the ethics.
The ethics, then eat lamb, because it's reared, free range. It's, you can't intensively...
Well, I don't want to start eating meat. I will eat the placenta of a chicken or whatever those eggs are. I'll do that, but no, not the other stuff. Anyway, let's move on now. This one is from Wednesday's Mail now. What's this about? Chips for brains.
Neurotechnology could be used as a way to control crime, as an alternative to imposing a jail sentence. So essentially, this is putting a technology helmet on your head which controls your behaviour.
Wait, no, it's putting a chip inside your brain that stops you committing crimes, right?
Yeah, so neurotechnologies are brain implants or pieces of wearable tech that interact directly with your brain by monitoring or influencing neuroactivity. Absolutely terrifying, Andrew.
It's horrible. I mean, also, this article says the chips may be susceptible to hacking.
Exactly.
So you put one of these helmets on and some, malevolent gangster hacks into your brain and gets you to go and steal money from a bank.
Yeah, Chinese Communist Party hacks into your brain.
Well, it doesn't have to be them, it can be anyone.
It's become really industrious.
ISIS, yeah.
I mean, look, I know
this could be we could solve a few things here.
I'm really not into this. Like this whole, there's this thing called transhumanism, where we're going to go beyond. I'm not talking about transitioning gender. You're going beyond humanity by making yourself more intelligent. You could, I suppose, have access to the internet in your brain if they shove a chip in there. But they also completely destroy your soul, your humanity.
Exactly.
It's absolutely horrible.
I'd rather go to prison.
Transhumanist phobic.
Well,
I mean, and also this meddles with the idea of free will. So they're implying that there are people with, biases in their brains, overactive parts of their brain, that make them more likely to commit crimes.
Yes.
And obviously our whole criminal justice system is based around the fact that, you sort of decide to commit a crime. Otherwise, if you're not responsible for it, if it's not a decision, then why bother putting somebody on trial? It wasn't their fault.
Exactly. You could blame on it. You might have the wrong download. It could all go wrong one day, and you just say to the judge, "I'm sorry, I don't know."
But this is the reason why we don't do things like chemical castration for sex offenders and stuff, because it's, you can't start messing with who a human being is using by the means of science. No. However much you might think there is utility to that, there is a real ethical issue with this.
Huge problem.
It's mad. Anyway,
this is where, and we're going to see more of this as government is just creeping up in the sort of share of GDP that each nation spends. So the public sector is growing in power, which means we're just gradually going to drift towards autocracy and communism.
Well, on that positive note, let's move on. All I can say about that is I don't want to be a cyborg. I'm not going to let it happen. Anyway, next one. It's about something very bendy but remarkably tough. So, enough about me. Leo, what has the Times got for us?
So graphene, which is a wonder material formed of carbon atoms, I think spread out in a matrix in an octagon, is that right? I'm not sure. But anyway, when it was discovered, it was, carbon can form all these like crazy structures. Like there's nanotubes and there's the buckyballs. But graphene...
Are you just making words up now?
No, these are serious things. Am I right?
Those words are in there. I didn't understand them.
But that sounds like a character from a cartoon.
Basically, carbon is an incredible substance. So it's in everything. It's in us, and it's in so much electronics. It's in pencils. But
science lesson. Leo the science guy on headliners.
So anyway, about 20 years ago, it was graphene was discovered, and it's a mesh of a single atom thick mesh of carbon atoms, and it was more conductive than copper, more flexible than rubber, tougher than diamond. I mean, obviously, diamond is made out of carbon atoms as well. It was supposed to herald all these like miraculous new technologies.
Well, how come I've only ever heard of it tonight? It's so miraculous.
The reason you've only heard of it, and I'm sorry, I'm going to steal your thunder slightly here, Leo, is that it went from being revered as an electronic material to becoming a pair of underpants. That's how they sold it.
But electronic underpants, isn't it?
Who doesn't want those?
I'm so confused. So they found this incredible material that could change the world, and they turned it into a pair of underpants.
That's what they thought it was.
And so no one went along with it.
Basically, this story, like this guy is by Simon Thomas, who's the founder of Paragraph. And there's a political bias behind the story because he is complaining that he's not getting enough subsidies for his company or something.
Right.
So he's saying, you know, we would have made miracle applications with graphene before, but we didn't because we weren't getting money from the government or whatever.
I see.
And I think we already are. We're using graphene in electrical circuits. It's being used. It's being applied.
And so now it's going to be used a whole lot more. That's what the article's saying.
Well, the next story is the same guy. He's just sent out press releases to everyone. He's threatened to leave the country over what he calls political paralysis and a lack of clarity in national industrial strategy, particularly related to carbon-based underpants.
Okay.
Can you imagine that being the reason you left the country at this time? With everything that's going on.
Well, I'll tell you what,
that.
I think I've had enough of graphene because I still don't really understand what it is. Let's move on to Wednesday's Times. Much older technological discoveries with this one.
Arrow from 1,500 years ago found in melting ice. Archaeologists have found a perfectly preserved 1,500-year-old arrow inside a glacier. A team of 7 people from Secrets of the Ice. Secrets of the Ice. Part of the local council's glacier archaeology programme discovered the arrow in some mountains in Norway. Now, they said that they were on a reindeer hunting site.
Yes.
So there's nothing in here that proves to me that it wasn't just, you know, from last week.
We should trust them, right? They're saying
they are scientists, and Leo has taught me never to trust science or science.
So they're saying the arrow was from AD 300 to 600. It's quite specific.
They have.
It makes sense because people aren't making arrows anymore.
Yeah, there is that.
Because we've got guns now. If you want to kill a reindeer, you just walk up to it with an AK-47.
And what are the implications for this? Why are archaeologists so happy about finding this arrow?
Well, because of the way it's so well preserved, it can tell us a lot about that time.
Okay.
And what we need to know right now, above all else, is what was happening 1,500 years ago.
Why not? I think it's really important. Anyway, we're going to move on now to tomorrow's Daily Mail. And a hairy beast is roaming around Kent. I thought Josh Harry was in Crete.
It's not that hairy on the top of his head. But, yeah, so the first bison to roam the British countryside since the Ice Age, I mean, that film was out, what, 10 years ago?
Yes.
Are already making a remarkable impact on the local environment just 1 month after being released. So they released a matriarch, so an older female bison, and 2 younger females, because they wanted some drama. They released them to West Blean and Thorndon Woods near Canterbury, Kent, as part of a £1.2 million project of your money, taxpayers' money, to rewild Britain and help slow global warming. I'm not sure. Bison in the
3 of them.
But wait a minute.
It's going to help global warming.
Well, apparently it's really helped the local ecosystem because they've been creating trails through brambles and the other animals are enjoying these new passageways.
This sounds like made-up nonsense.
And humans are going nowhere near them. Now, I like a ramble, Andrew. Do you like a ramble?
I love a good ramble,
walk,
yeah.
but I am terrified of cows. I'm trying to overcome it, trying all sorts of ways. They kill 6 people a year, Leo. It's not a laughing matter, okay, mate?
No.
Cows, they do. Not with knives.
No, because I grew up with cows, and we used to go.
He was raised by cows, yeah.
We used to get them to chase us. So if you go towards a herd of cows and then sort of walk away from them, they start following it. If you start running, they start running, and then you jump over walls and stuff, and they just come battering.
I'm very confused about this because aren't bison very dangerous? Now they've introduced these 3 females. I believe they're going to introduce a male as well. And I was watching Planet of the Apes the other day, and I know how this begins, and I know where this leads. I mean, they will run wild. They're dangerous, big, hairy beasts.
They are massive.
Also, they're loved by the Nazis, according to this
We
article.
might as well bring wolves back.
Yeah.
Well, they are bringing wolves back. They want to make wolves more common in Scotland, don't they? They want
Definitely.
wild wolves.
Back in
Well,
Scotland.
yeah, because wolves would eat some of the rubbish that the SNP can't.
Yeah, but that would solve that. 2 birds with 1 stone. Anyway, we're going to finish now with the Telegraph. My favourite German word. What's this about, Paul?
Doppelganger. Or
good word, isn't it?
doppelgangers. It's a great word, isn't it? I'm not sure what it literally translates to, but basically people who look alike, isn't it?
Yes.
Doppelgangers don't just look alike, they are alike, Andrew. There is a strong correlation between people who look similar and their lifestyles and behavioural traits, genetic study shows.
So basically, people who look alike are probably distantly related and therefore they have predispositions to behave in certain ways. But doesn't this lead us down the road of physiognomy? You know, the old Middle Ages practice of being able to read people's looks to decide on their character and sort of make all sorts of assumptions about people.
And their skull shape. I mean, they do say...
That's phrenology, isn't it, when you feel their for the lumps on their head.
Yeah, to find out if they're a criminal or not.
Bring that back.
When they checked the genetic profiles, and these are scientists, by the way,
yes.
They found out that people who looked alike had similar DNA. What do they think DNA does? Obviously, it's going to make people look alike. It's DNA.
Yeah, but there's an odd...
That's what DNA does.
Yeah, but there's an odd thing, because they're saying that people who are not at all related, they tend to have, if they look similar, they have similar kind of habits when it comes to even, like, what type of food they like, what type of games they like to play. Isn't this a bit creepy?
Like tall people duck when they walk through doorways.
Well, that, I get that, but isn't there something a bit sinister about it?
Well, I don't know if sinister's the right word, but I guess people who do look the same are treated by the rest of the human race the same, therefore probably behave the same in response to that.
Yeah, so
this doesn't feel like big news to me.
No, it's not. It's certainly not. That's why we left it till last fall. This is what we call the scraping the bottom of the barrel part of the show. Definitely not big news, but it's interesting nonetheless.
It's very interesting.
And I'm interested in this physiognomy idea because, people assume they could tell your moral character by how you look, but Stalin was gorgeous when he was young. Did you see it?
Beautiful,
incredible.
Man.
And also criminology and criminal science moved from assuming that the person was responsible for the crime to the environment is responsible for it.
Right. Well, very interesting. We could go on about that for hours, but we don't have hours. We have 10 seconds. That's all we've got time for. Thanks to my guests, Leo Kearse and Paul Cox. And Leo and I will be back tomorrow with headliners at 11 o'clock. See you then.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin.